It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 18 of season 3, I got to talk to you, the people, about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, please make sure to like and subscribe. And as you know by the thumbnail, we are going to be talking about the first Eastern Conference playoffs round against the New York Knicks for the Detroit Pistons. So if you have any hot takes, comments, questions, make sure to put them in a comment below. Comment section below. We'd love to know what you guys are thinking as we head into this first round playoff series, and I think it's going to be pretty electric. So make sure to comment below what your head is at as listeners. And then if you aren't so much into long form content but happen to be tuning in to this week's episode, go in the description below this video. There is a link that sends you to our Instagram. Click that link and follow us on Instagram, because weekly, daily, we are making posts, whether it's debate topics, reminders to watch the episodes, and clips. So if you rather short form content than our long form, I'd go follow us on Instagram, because then you can stay in the know, everything going on with the Detroit Pistons without having to watch the full long form content that we have on YouTube. So the reels are a lot of fun. We try to get 2 to 3 out a week. So you'll still be informed everything going on with the Detroit Pistons if you follow us on Instagram. Without further ado, let's get into episode number 18 of season 3. And before we get into the nit and grit details of everything that's going to go into this 7-game series between the Pistons and the New York Knicks, right, I want to reference the last 2 games of the season against the Milwaukee Bucks, because as we were leading into these 2 games, me and you were kind of going back and forth talking about how this is a crucial 2 games. The Pistons will be able to kind of weigh out how they're doing against NBA's competition. And as the Milwaukee Bucks ease into a playoff series against the Indiana Pacers, the Pistons lost these 2 games against the Milwaukee Bucks, who are playing at a pretty good level with the absence of Damian Lillard. Now, in the last game of the season, a lot of stars were missing. You know, Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play. Of course, Dame Lillard. Cade ended up sitting out with Tobias Harris. The biggest name we saw for the Pistons in that last game of the season was Jalen Duren. So, Ryan, where's your head at as far as the competition and the competitiveness the Pistons put up against the Milwaukee Bucks? Because we would have liked them to win those games.
Yeah, you look at those 2 games. They were marked on the calendars for a while there. The last 2 weeks or so, because we knew, okay, we have the Knicks, we have the Bucks back to back to end the season. This is going to be a tough stretch of games, and I even throw the Kings in there, throw the Grizzlies in there. That slew of games was going to be a test for us, because the Grizzlies are no joke. They're obviously playing didn't go well, but like they're still a playoff caliber team. You have the Kings, playoff caliber team. You have the Knicks, obviously, and the Bucks, who are playoff caliber teams for a reason. So it was going to be a hard slew of games that we were going to come into. The Grizzlies and Kings didn't go in our favor, even though they shouldn't have. There was a lot of botched calls. We know firsthand.
Horrible refing.
But
horrible.
With that being said, we even knew that the Knicks were going to be tough and the Bucks were going to be even harder. Given the fact that we went 3-1 against the Knicks, fantastic. But to me, it's a little like, ooh, watch out for the playoffs. We'll get into that in a minute. But the Bucks, those 2 games, to me, it hurts, because you would have wanted those wins. I never like losing. Nobody likes to lose. So given those last 2 games there, I would have preferred if we went at least 500 of them. If we went 1-1, I would have been content. I would have been cool. I would have been cool, calm, and collected.
Totally.
Shooting the breeze. Here we go. But going 0-2 in those games is kind of like, ooh, oh, this isn't good. And so you had 2 sides of it to the story here. You have the post game with the crew. You have Tim McCormick, Grant Long talking about the game. Grant Long was like, this isn't good. They shouldn't have lost these 2 games or even the slew of games coming into the playoffs. This is terrible timing for that. Tim McCormick on the other side is going like, no, this is good. We want to get the losing out of the way right now. So then, therefore, in the playoffs, they can resurrect themselves. They can get back into the groove.
Fair. That's fair.
And my situation there is like I can see Grant's point and I can see Tim's point. And I'm siding with Tim on this one. Just in the sense that get the losing out of the way now because you just lost to playoff caliber teams. You didn't lose to just teams that aren't even going to make it to the playoffs. You lost to playoff caliber teams that are going to be, I'm going to say Bucks in particular, but you lost to the Bucks, who most likely should be in the second round of the playoffs and could contend for a championship, honestly. If Dame comes back healthy, Kyle Kuzma's been playing great for them. If everyone's healthy, they could actually compete for a championship this year. If everyone's healthy. But the point is, you just played up against a team that actually has good players. It doesn't matter who you are looking at your roster. Pat Connaughton drops 43 on us. He's normally a great role player, but 43 is absurd. But keep in mind, we also were without some of our star guys too. We even played our starters. And we came back. Lindy Waters forces overtime. And you had, at one point, we were down 20, and we forced overtime. And that was just our reserves. Our reserves in that game had 99 points combined. That is crazy. And to say Grant Long's point of this isn't good going into the playoffs, that's, to me, that stat of 99 points combined with your reserves is phenomenal. The fact that your reserves played that good against a team in the Bucks, yes, they didn't have Giannis, and yes, they didn't have Damian Lillard, but they still had Kyle Kuzma, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, all their other key role players out there, and our reserves took them to overtime and barely lost. Like, that's pretty darn good. Throw Cade in the mix, throw all of our key guys back out there with our reserves doing what they did, we would have won that game. And it's truthfully, if we would have had our starters out there, that would have been a win. And even the game prior, that should have been a win. There were some honestly questionable calls there at the end in the first matchup. No, I'm not surprised we lost to the Bucks. The Bucks are a good team, but I don't think it's the end of the world that we lost those 2 games.
Well, and we beat the team that we're going to be facing in the 7-game series, the Knicks, which was a really big statement win. And yes, it could either put a chip on the shoulder for the Knicks as they head into this series, or they know that, hey, this Pistons team is going to be a dogfight, and it's going to be a great series. But before we head into that, I want to mention how the Detroit Pistons lost 4 out of their last 5 games of the season. And yes, that might be a little demoralizing, but it might give them the chip on the shoulder that they need heading into this series against the Knicks. And a lot of college commentators heading into March Madness say, hey, I'm going to bet on that team that loses in the conference championship heading into March Madness because they have that chip on their shoulder. They got that grudge against other teams and they want to prove themselves. So I'm with Tim McCormick in the way that this might have been good for the Pistons. You know what? Fall on the ground, get angry, get in the locker room, yell at each, whatever you got to do, but lick your wounds, head into this 7-game series against the Knicks and just be ready for it to be a dogfight and know that this team is very, very beatable and hopefully look on to the second round of the playoffs, which I know that me and you would be ecstatic about that. So that's very exciting. Let's get into talking about the nit and grit details about this 7-game series against the New York Knicks for the Detroit Pistons. You mentioned it before, Ryan. The Detroit Pistons went 3-1 during the regular season against the Knicks. The Pistons overall just really matched up well against this New York Knicks team. And we had done an episode earlier this year about, Cade versus Brunson, who's better at the helm, if either player was given each other's roster, who would make a bigger impact. And at the end of that discussion, we talked about how, well, Cade has the bigger impact on the overall game. Rather than Jalen Brunson. So we know that matchup is going to be an absolute movie. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting to see how we guard Jalen Brunson. If JB is going to have Cade D up on Brunson on defense. It'll be just kind of interesting because there is that size difference. So you can kind of get a little interesting with Cade and who he guards. But what I'm most interested in as far as matchup wise and what's going to make or break this playoff series is Jalen Duren versus Karl Anthony Towns. It's going to be an absolute dogfight. And Ryan, why this is so important to me is because when we went to Detroit, watched the Sacramento Kings and Memphis Grizzlies matchups for the Pistons, first game against the Memphis Grizzlies, Jalen Duren sat out to rest his knee. And we saw Zach Edey just put out an absolute clinic in the paint, not scoring wise, but he had 22 rebounds by the end of the 4 quarters. And it proved evident that Jalen Duren had to show up in the paint and be a beast for the Detroit Pistons to succeed. And Ryan, I think Jalen Duren is going to be a big key factor for the Detroit Pistons if they move on to the second round. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts as far as this matchup of Karl Anthony Towns versus Jalen Duren? Because yes, they're two very different players, but very key for their respective teams.
So to me, when you look at this matchup between Duren and Cat, obviously both deal with some injuries from time to time. So that's going to be a big thing going into this matchup is, can Cat stay healthy? How many games can Cat play? And as far as Duren goes, he's going to play the whole series. He should not miss a single game, even with the amount of injuries he's had this year and how many games they've just kept him out for resting purposes. He's going to play. He's going to play the whole series. But the biggest question there is Karl Anthony Towns. How many games does he play? Because out of all the Pistons matchups, the 4 games there, he's missed majority of those games. And there's the one at the very end there that we just won. Cat did play, and we handled him. We had no issues. But I think the matchup outside of just Duren and Cat, I think you have to throw Isaiah Stewart into that mix too. It's really Duren and Stu versus Cat, just from the physicality standpoint, because Karl Anthony Towns can't compete with Duren or Stu physically. He just can't. He may be huge compared to Stu in just the size department, but Stu just bodies him all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. He just is throwing his body up against him, and Cat can't do anything. And as far as Duren, same thing applies there. Cat just, for whatever it is, he struggles very heavily against actual bigs. Because realistically, Cat is not a big. He's a stretch 5. He can play. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot. He can pass. He can do all those things. But once you have once you have an elite defender up against him, he can't do anything. It's usually against the opposing team's weakest link that he's like putting up these absurd numbers with. Honestly, you go back to last year with Minnesota. Why did Minnesota lose the way they did? Because he didn't show up. It's not that Anthony Edwards didn't show up, because Edwards shows up all the time. It's that Cat didn't show up. He would hit big shot after big shot from time to time, but outside of that, you can't always just rely on your shot, or at least your 3-point shot as a 5 in the NBA. You have to be able to do work in the paint, and he just can't do that. He struggles in the paint so much. And going up against Duren and Stu in the paint, he's not going to win that battle. And we've seen that time and time again within our 3-1 record against the Knicks. And so you look at what this playoff matchup could be. If he plays 1 game and that's it, the whole series, Pistons win. If he plays 2 games, I still think the Pistons win. But if he at least misses 1 game, the Pistons are going to win the series. And I know that's bold of me to say, but I truly do believe it. Because you take out Cat, who is by far probably their biggest weapon, honestly. You take Cat out. Then you have, matchup-wise, you have Asar against Mikal Bridges. And I do think Cade does guard Brunson. That at least that was the most recent matchup that JB had against the Knicks. Is Cade did guard Brunson. Brunson in 29 minutes only had 15 points.
Yeah, he struggled.
So I think Dern will be just fine against Cat, and I think Stu thrown into that mix too will be just fine against Cat. Cat's biggest overarching issue is can he stay healthy? And if he does, then you're going to have a little bit of a battle there because Duran can't guard very far out. He can guard the perimeter. Actually has great perimeter defense, but it's hard getting a hand up in Cat's face, who Cat is bigger in the overall height compared to Duran. And then Duran, from time to time, does struggle staying on the ground. He usually tries to jump and block. Same with Stu. But I think as long as Cat stays healthy, you got to fight. But if he doesn't, it's game over.
So in a few minutes, we're going to talk about how Cade historically plays great against the New York Knicks. We're going to talk about some of those statistics. But first off, just some of my first thoughts on this series is it's going to be crucial, these first two games of the series that are going to be at MSG. And then following those two games, the Pistons get two games at Little Caesars Arena. And the reason I say these first two games are so crucial is this Knicks team has veteran experience as far as playoff basketball. This Detroit Pistons team, it's most of their first appearances other than Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and I believe that's it. So as far as these first two games go, if the Pistons drop these first two games, I am not just worried because we're down 0-2, but because this Pistons team hasn't proven to me that they can make that type of a comeback over a playoff series. It is absolutely crucial that the Pistons for sure split these two first games with the New York Knicks as they head into Little Caesars Arena. I would love to say they go up 2-0. That's just it just doesn't seem, applicable to me. Even though this Pistons team does play the Knicks well, but I just wanted to point that out, how as this series begins, and from my opinion, these first two games are going to be absolutely crucial, and they at least have to split it, because if they go down 0-2, I just worry about how they make that comeback happen. And I do see the series possibly going to 6 games, but I just don't see it going where the New York Knicks go up 2-0. It's just not going to be a good sight. Let's talk about Cade and his play against the New York Knicks this season. So the Pistons played the Knicks 4 times, and in those 4 games, Cade averaged 58% shooting from the field when guarded by OG Anunoby and Josh Hart. So these two guys in particular are known for their defensive play, but despite that, Cade still shoots at a high clip. I don't know the specific stats for his shooting percentage when guarded by Brunson, but that's his, shooting 58% from the field when guarded by OG and Josh Hart. In those 4 games, Cade averaged 29 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3.7 3-pointers per game in the 24-25 season. His best game came on December 7th of 2024. He recorded a triple-double with 29 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, a fat triple-double for Cade, and marking the first triple-double by a Piston player at Madison Square Garden in the current era. And then the Pistons ended up winning 24-119. I mean, absolute great stat line from Cade Cunningham. And we know that for this Pistons team to come out on top in this 7-game series, Cade's going to have to play at a high level. Ryan, what are some of your first thoughts on what the Cade needs to offer for the Detroit Pistons for them to compete at a high level against the Knicks?
Honestly, I think it just comes down to himself. Usually, so like the last game against the Knicks, he had 36 points on 16 of 24 shooting with 8 assists, 2 rebounds, a steal, a block. Like he did it all. Um, and to me, that stat line is like he needed to do that in order for them to win because it's not like we played terrible because Duran had his double-double of 18 and 13. Then you have Tobias puts up 17. Great. Asar Thompson struggled a lot in that game, scoring wise, where he normally doesn't. Ron Holland steps up, gives us 13. Malik Beasley struggled and got us 10. So like the point is like if our guys aren't going, Cade needs to step up. If our guys are going, he can take the step back a little bit. But honestly, even in this matchup, I don't want Cade to take the foot off the gas at all. At any point in time, do not take the foot off the gas. Unless we have what, a 30-point lead or even a 15-point lead, don't take the foot off the gas. But that's just because I don't like the Knicks. But I think what Cade, at least my expectations for him, just go out there and do your thing. Give us the 25, give us 28 points, give us what, 8 assists. His average is 9 on the season. Give us a couple rebounds. Like just do your normal game. And if the rest of the team shows up, the rest of the team shows up. That's the bottom line. It can't just always be him. That was the focus of this season, was it can't just be Cade. And last year, the theme, overarching theme was it kind of has to be Cade in order for the team to win. But this year, getting Malik Beasley, getting Tobias Harris, getting Tim Hardaway Jr., getting a bunch of these guys in has resulted rather in Cade being Magic Johnson out there. It's resulted in a new version of Grant Hill, of Nikola Jokic, and I know I just compared him to Nikola Jokic. That kind of felt wrong. But the point is, like, what Cade can do out there is something that most NBA players can't do and will never be able to do. His flow of the game is impressive because he can slow the game down a lot or he can speed it up. There's no like it just almost looks what effortless per se. So I really think if K just goes out there and does his normal thing, we'll be just fine. Honestly, if he struggles, then we'll struggle. But Cade, there hasn't been a game where he's really struggled that the team hasn't stepped up and climbed on his back and put in the work. I have yet to see that. If you go off this matchup alone, at least this season, we're 3-1, obviously. But the Knicks beat us 128-98 in game one. We went on to win the next 3 games, 120 to 111, 124 to 119, and 115 to 106. And to me, that shows A, how much Cade has gotten better each night out, but then B, how much the team has gotten better each night out, following alongside what Cade has been putting up. And then throw in JB Bickerstaff. He's been putting on a master class. But I think as long as Cade does his typical, we're fine.
I think this playoffs, not even first round, say they make it out of the second, is going to be Cade's coming out party, basically. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about him, making his first All-Star appearance, him, having a one-on-one on ESPN saying, I want to be the best player in the world. He obviously has lofty goals, but I think, you can only accomplish so much in the regular season. Names are made in the playoffs when games really count. And I think Cade's about to make a name for himself in a big way than we've even experienced yet. And that makes me really excited. It just seems that he's kind of had like a steady, like just getting better and better, becoming more refined, making less, horrible turnovers, making the right passes, knocking down the mid-range game at a high level right now. He just doesn't miss around the mid-range game. And I think that this Knicks team is going to do the best they can with the defensive players they got. And let's be honest, they got a lot of defensive players. But I think with the offensive firepower that this Pistons team has, it's going to be a struggle for the New York Knicks. I know they're the 3rd seed. I know the Pistons are the 6th seed. I know the seeding. I know, the Knicks are 3rd in the East for a reason. But I think this Pistons team can accomplish some big things. It's just a matter of how this series starts out right from the get-go. They just don't have that playoff veteran work that other teams have. So I'm going to be very excited to see what Cade accomplishes this playoff series, and I think it's going to be real big for his career and you know hopefully a legendary run. I want to take some time to talk about players on the Knicks to look out for. Obviously, there's Jalen Brunson who could give you 40 on any given night. Karl Anthony Towns can hit 5 threes on you on any given night. I realize that, but there are some other key players on this New York Knicks team that could burn the Pistons in a big way. And Ryan, one of the ones that pops off, the board to me is Miles McBride, backup point guard to Jalen Brunson. He's just one of those guys that you never know when he's going to go off. And in a 6-game, 7-game series that this series might look like, he could give you 2-3 games that he disappears, but those crucial games, he always seems to show up in the late stages of a game. So he's one of those guys that I think is going to give Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Sasser a run for their money. And he just kind of worries me a little bit. It's always those small point guards that give Pistons a lot of fits.
Yeah, honestly, you had Pat Connaughton drops 43 on us, and that's just like honest. It's absurd, really. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Great at Notre Dame. But like, come on, Pat Connaughton dropping 43 on us? That's crazy. I understand it's against our reserves. If Cade and all those guys were out there, he probably wouldn't have dropped 43, let's be honest. But yeah, Miles McBride, last game out against us, 12 points on 5 of 18 shooting, 2 of 10 from 3, played 39 minutes, had 2 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. So obviously not just scoring, but 4 steals. Was very, very much on the defensive menace side against us last time out. But I think, honestly, with him, yes, he can go off at any point in time. But honestly, as long as we lock up Brunson and lock up Mikal Bridges, lock up Cat, lock up OG Anunoby, the list goes on, I think we're fine if he gives them 12. As long as we lock up the normal guys that you would expect to lock up, him giving us 12, we win, honestly.
Yep.
Because, like, you look at Cat, right? Cat put up 25 and 10 with 5 assists and 1 steal. We still won. Precious Achiuwa put up 18 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. We still won. Mikal Bridges put up 17, which is low for him, but still 17 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. We won. Jalen Brunson put up 15 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks. We won. Miles McBride, like I said, the 12 points, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals. We won. The point is, even with those guys doing their thing, we won. And so, yes, Miles McBride could go off at any point in time. But why did we win this game? Obviously, we're better. We just lost a couple games here and there that we probably shouldn't have lost. That's what it came down to. It's always going to be Detroit versus everybody for a reason. But my biggest thing outside of what Miles McBride can do is you look at the depth that the Knicks have in their bench. They have no bench at all. And then not only that, why is that? Well, they're paying their starting 5 over the cap limit. But then also Tom Thibodeau, historically speaking, doesn't play a deep bench. At most, he plays 6 guys, 7 guys. That's it. You go back to Chicago, go back to Minnesota, go back to all of his stops. He doesn't play a deep bench. And that has killed every single team he's been a part of that have been great in the regular season. But then why do they crumble in the playoffs? Because he doesn't have the bench. He doesn't have the resources because he just doesn't coach the right way to utilize his guys the right way in order to win. Because Chicago, let's be honest, with Derrick Rose and the whole gang, they should have won something at some point in time, but they didn't. You go back to Minnesota. Minnesota, obviously, that was a different situation, but still, it's a good quality team. You had Jimmy Butler. You had Andrew Wiggins there. You had a couple guys where you could have actually done some damage in the playoffs, but you didn't. And then you go with the Knicks here. He's been with the Knicks for how many years now? And they've done nothing. They've been a great regular season team, but then fall in the playoffs. Why? So I think he's the big reason behind it. But then also if we're going coaching matchups alone, JB is just destroying Tom Thibodeau any day of the week.
Yeah.
But and even in a 1v1, I'm taking JB all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But no, he doesn't utilize his bench. And his bench, like in that most recent game, PJ Tucker, he's great. But he's what, 39 years old? What is he going to do against a 23-year-old in like Ron Holland? I know he's not 23, but I'm just saying, just a younger player. Cameron Payne was fantastic for the Suns in their playoff runs, but he's been mediocre at best since. But honestly, that's given the fact that Tom Thibodeau doesn't play a bench. DeLon Wright, great role player, but he's a great role player on a losing team. You have Landry Shamet, and he's a great shooter, but he's a great shooter on a bad team. The point is, they don't have the bench, they don't have the coach. Their starting five can do their thing and still lose. So, as far as you look at what this could be, I'm taking the Pistons, but it's hit or miss. They just don't have the bench. And Miles McBride, if he does his thing like he just did most recently against us, and the slew of their rest of their four out there do what they did, we win.
Well, and to your point about how Thibodeau only plays like 7, 8 guys in the playoffs, that's going to be to their detriment at an all-time level because of how physical this Detroit Pistons team is. And it seems, as you look at the stats, as you look at the records, that you just kind of go up and down all these things. It's just like it's adding up that I think the Pistons have an edge in this series. And I know it sounds crazy, and I know the New York Knicks are a bigger market, bigger fan base. People can hate that take all you want, but in the end, it's going to have to be proven between those lines on the court. And I think it's going to be a great, great series for NBA fans in general. Ryan, as far as prediction for the 7-game series, where's your head at? Is it going to full 7 games? Are the Pistons going to give up 1 game and win it in 5? What are some of your thoughts?
I think, again, it all matters on Karl-Anthony Towns. How healthy is he going to be in this matchup? Is he going to be 100% or is he going to be 50%? If he's 50%, I see the Pistons taking it in 5. If he's 100%, it just depends. I mean, we went, 3-1 in the regular season. Postseason's a whole nother beast. Maybe who's to say that the Knicks weren't really trying in the regular season all that much, and maybe they're just gonna hit the gas full throttle and just cruise in the playoffs? Who knows? But if Cat plays, it should be a 6-game series. If he doesn't, it's a 5-game series in the Pistons' favor. 6 games, I want to say that's Pistons, but and honestly, it's going strictly off of the fact that we went 3-1 against them. But I'm skeptical too, just given the fact that it's the Knicks, and you had the whole panel of Stephen A. Smith and all of them say that the Pistons were going to win, and that just feels wrong to me, and that just makes me feel like the Pistons are going to lose now, especially when Stephen A. Smith is saying that they're going to win.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, I think he's a great talent, but he just doesn't really have the it factor for me. And I just think that, he shows up in the playoffs, but our best player is also a point guard. I think it goes to 6 games. I think it for sure goes to 6 games, whether the Pistons lose it or win it. It's going to 6 games. I don't see the Pistons having enough oomph in them to make it to 7, no matter what it is. If the Pistons are on the winning side, if they're on the losing side, I just don't think it'll go that late. I think if the Pistons are winning or losing, it's going to be done fairly early. And I think it's, 6 games. Make sure to comment below on the 7-game series. If you see the New York Knicks sweeping the Pistons, or if you see it going to 7 games, make sure to comment below. We'd love to know what you have to say. That will do it for episode number 18 of season 3. Ryan, it's our first time covering the playoffs for the Pistons. This was a lot of fun. I could get used to talking playoff basketball for the Detroit Pistons. I absolutely love it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.